Hello, welcome to another episode. In this episode, we'll be looking at some of the problems of democracy in Africa. And to help me is Dr. Jasper Ayelazuno. Dr. Jasper Ayelazuno is a Ghanaian public servant and academic with more than 30 years combined experience of public service, teaching, and research. He is presently a senior lecturer and head of the Department of Communication, Innovation, and Technology, University for Development Studies in Ghana. He obtained his PhD in political science from York University here in Canada and his master's in development studies from Sussex University in the UK. He got his BA from the University of Legon in Ghana. He is the author of the book Neoliberal Globalization and Resistance from Below: Why the Subalterns Resist in Bolivia and Not in Ghana. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Jasper Ayelazuno. In your academic writings, you use the word subaltern. Can you please explain to us in a layman's language who is a subaltern in, say, Ghana or any other African country?
Thank you very much. I usually use the subalterns instead of using workers, as in the case of the Western world, where you really have a working class. But in my case, I use the subalterns to describe a group of people that you can say are the masses, ordinary people, the poor, the underprivileged. Some people call them the have-nots. Basically, they are the marginalized in society, those who are powerless. And in some cases, they are exploited. But another dimension of it is that I try to capture the fact that despite being exploited, despite being powerless, the subalterns have the political agency to change their situation. So in that case, given the right social context and with the right conditions in place, I'm hopeful that the subalterns can rise up. They will be able to probably challenge authorities that are suppressing them, challenge their exploiters. So there is a bit of political agency to my use of the word subalterns to describe this group of people.
Okay. So in popular parlance, they are the grassroots or the masses, as we would say in
Precisely. The ordinary people not having power, not among the political class, they are not rich. They are basically, in Ghana, they also have another word they call the Mbobroa. Mbobroa.
Mbobroa. Okay. One of the reasons why we're doing this program is to make the kind of academic thoughts and works by people like you that are important for development in Africa accessible to ordinary people who might not, be able to read and understand, those ideas that you have expressed so well in your academic publications. So I'd also like you to explain a word that you use a lot in your writing: Neopatrimonialism. You use it to describe one of the problems with Ghana's democracy. What does it mean?
Okay, thank you very much. As a background, we'll have to go back to what is patrimonialism before we now add the new patrimonial. When you are talking about a patrimonial authority or a patrimonial system of governance or a patrimonial exercise of power, just let us strip it down to the level of a family, and particularly in a patriarchal society like those that we have in Africa. Normally, the head of family is a male, very dominant, having power over every member of the family, having the resources of the family under his control. He determines who he gives who he favors, and who he distributes these resources to. When you take that to a level of a bigger unit like a village chief, or you take it to a tribe, like a leader of a tribe, that person then becomes an overall powerful person. So the authority he exercises is very personal, and he determines what to do by himself. Let's call him a big man. They are normally males. So that person basically uses these resources the way he likes. He uses the power the way he likes. Then when you take it to the present day modern state, especially the African state, which is not in the ancient times, because it is mimicking the characteristics of a modern state. What a new patrimonialism means that despite being a modern state, despite being a democratic state, it still has these characteristics of this traditional patrimonial authority or state. That means, similarly, the person even elected or having come to power through a coup behaves like basically the state belongs to him, and he has the right to do whatever. So he behaves like a king, he behaves like a prince, a sultan, a big man, using the resources of the state to distribute largesse to his favorites, to his kinsmen, his family, his cronies, in exchange for loyalty, in exchange for political survival. So most political scientists use neopatrimonialism to describe this emergence of patrimonial tendencies in the modern African state.
Okay. So whilst in the ancient times, before electoral systems of government, they were just, it was known as patrimonialism. When it now comes with elections and things like that, they're known as it's known as a neo-patrimonial system.
Exactly.
Actually, going from what you've described, there are a number of examples that come to mind in Nigeria.
Exactly.
Who, because of their wealth, are actually kingmakers. They determine who runs for what office. They fund them, and those ones get into office, and their loyalty is first to the person who has sponsored them into office.
Precisely.
It's a common practice in Nigeria. There are states in which just one person for the last so many years holds the power to do and undo, in the government in some states in Nigeria. So I totally can relate to.
In Nigeria, Robert Joseph described it as a prebendal state. So the way you are describing it, like is a similar way, but he uses a different term, which means the same thing, because the state is considered as a prebend. A prebend means a resource. So you come to inside a public office and it becomes a resource for you, which you then use to do this kind of distribution based on family affiliation, based on chronism, based on tribe, and based on other political sensibilities.
And the power extends even beyond individual states. It goes right up to ministerial appointments, the federal level. Even though the person is a kingmaker in one state, he determines who gets appointed ministers, or even vice president, or even who gets who the state backs, to vote for in presidential elections. It's very, very pervasive.
And just imagine that doing all that in the name of having been elected democratically, and or doing all that as a representative of the people, where you are supposed to be answerable to the people that elected you. Yet, like you are describing it, this is basically a personal use of the state, and not for the people, not accountable to the people.
So, can you elaborate more on how this plays into corruption?
Actually, it thrives on political corruption, because it means you are doing all kinds of illegal things. You are using the state resources in an illegal way, in a dishonest way. And that is what they call political corruption. On one hand, you are trying to find means to represent yourself as managing the resources of the state on behalf of the citizens. Meanwhile, underneath that, you are going into fishy deals. You are doing all kinds of things to basically dip your hand in the coffers of the state to do this kind of distribution in your own interests. In the case of Nigeria again, and even in Ghana, now that Ghana has oil, and oil is normally a fertile ground for political corruption, and that is where you see neo-patrimonial practices, because it brings a lot of money. So the person either awards contracts for oil to oil companies and takes bribes, or by using the rents and then the windfalls from the oil and using it for all these practices that are not necessarily in favor or in the interest of the general citizenry of the country.
I actually think it is way more sophisticated, a more sophisticated practice in Nigeria, because you have a situation where the big man himself is either not even in government at all or used to be in government, and then but has amassed so much wealth that they now use this wealth to put people in places of government where they can now use siphon government resources to continue to perpetuate the power of that person or that group of people.
Precisely. They call it crony capitalism. So the way you describe it, he's not in power, but he has sponsored somebody. He has sponsored somebody to get into power, and through that person, that person now siphons, and all the way to the presidency.
They actually appoint across all the strata, at the federal level, at the state level, even at the local government level. This person or these men in various states are the kingmakers. They are the kingpin. They determine who gets elected, who even runs for what offices. And during elections, they send out money to the mass roots, to ensure that they vote their people in, just so that the cycle of self-enrichment and aggrandizement continues.
Exactly. So clearly, this is a quintessential neo-patrimonial state that is, masquerading itself as a democratic state, a modern state, and meanwhile, it's just about, political corruption. It's about favoritism and nepotism.
Yeah, and it's surprising because democracy is seen as a panacea, but you paint such an unsettling picture of democracy in Ghana and other parts of Africa.
I do.
It's the problem with democracy, the way we practice it in most of Africa.
I do, and that the way we just described the new patrimonial states dovetails into the democratic state and even makes it worse. So here in the case of Ghana, since 1992, it has been celebrated as the model of democracy in Africa.
Yes.
To the extent that when you mention Ghana, as a matter of fact, you are proud to mention yourself as a Ghanaian, because you mention yourself Ghana and they say, oh, the democratic country, the very peaceful country. And so, but underneath this are these neo-patrimonial practices, which probably you describe in Nigeria to be so sophisticated. The same thing is being replicated in Ghana, where you have all kinds of people supporting parties because of what they can deliver to them when they come to power. So whilst Ghana's democracy is celebrated, and I'm not saying that Ghana hasn't done well in terms of the way democracy has been consolidated, you don't need to dismiss or to underrate the development of democracy, the advancement of democracy in Ghana, to make the criticisms that I'm making, because it's not because of the political class that Ghana has made this progress. It's actually because of the subalterns. They have been able to tolerate this corruption. They line up to vote every 4 years. And then they go back into poverty and wait till the next 4 years to go and vote. So I don't ascribe to the political class the credit for the consolidation of democracy in Ghana. I give that credit to the subaltern classes. And then based on that, I then argue that, but what have they benefited? It's still poverty. It's still living a life of that cannot be called a life. You don't have potable water to drink. Majority of them go hungry in a year. Some die out of preventable diseases like malaria, cholera. Most of them hardly make enough money to send their children to school. So they and their family are going to be in the same subaltern class with all these miseries, despite the fact that they are being called democratic citizens.
So it sounds to me, that you are laying the blame for this neopatrimonialism, the success of neopatrimonialism, on the masses, because it looks like they are the ones sustaining it.
Sustaining is a bit powerful. I think it looks like they have tolerated it, and in the sense that I would have thought that, considering their condition, their miserable condition, considering their precarious lives, the precarious life that they live, the sufferings that they go through, I am always amazed that they come out supporting all these political leaders. So it looks like democracy is intoxicating, even intoxicating the masses to the extent that they come out in their numbers, and they are even prepared to fight each other because of their support to one party or the other. And that is another paradox that I have been concerned to investigate in Ghana.
They line up in the rain, in the sun, just to get these people into office who will then get there and continue to steal from them. Let's step back a bit. How should a proper electoral democracy work? Since
That's
what
a good
we see now is not how it should work. People should not just come out and vote for anybody because they are maybe from the same area, or because they've given them some money, some small money to come out. So how should proper electoral democracy work?
Yes, that's a good question, and it's a subject to a lot of debate. And just to do away with the debates and to bring it down to the level of what democracy means. Democracy means rule by the people.
Yes.
Which means that you are elected, but you are actually a servant to the people who elected you. You are a servant to the subalterns. They have given you the power. Without them, you don't have power. So sovereignty, the whole power of the state rests on the citizens. They have just delegated it to you to exercise on their behalf. And that is how modern political systems work, because we cannot all go and be leaders. So taking it from this basic understanding of what democracy is, it then means that we have strayed away completely, where the tables have rather turned, where if you are elected, you become like a king, and you exercise the power irrespective of, you don't even care about the ordinary people. So to answer your question, proper democracy works where you come to power and you are grateful to the people for giving you the chance to lead, giving you the privilege to serve them. So you go to power with the interests of the people at heart. All policies that you implement are in the interest of the people, the general good of the people. call this participatory or popular democracy. So democracy doesn't necessarily mean procedural democracy or electoral democracy or liberal democracy. It can be the participatory type. It can be the socialist or radical democratic type, which you actually look at it. That is what African democracy is about. It's about using the state to promote the general welfare of the people. It's not about going there and just saying that because you are elected, you have the right to use the power the way you want. So if ordinary democracy in the ordinary sense is about the people and not about the political elite.
But what power does the electorate have? If they actually do what they're supposed to do, they come out, they vote, and the people get there and they don't do what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to, and they don't, care for the needs of the people. What power do people have other than waiting till the next 4 or 5 years? By which time, like you rightly said, a lot of them would be even more impoverished. Some might have died. Seriously, where does the power lie in a properly run democratic?
And that's the irony of democracy all over the world. I am presented in the very romantic sense. It is about the power of the people, but in real practice, even in the Western world where there are controls, you can see what Donald Trump is doing. And that is in the US. So in our situation, you can just imagine where is the power, like you rightly asked. But then that takes us to a different kind of politics, which is not about elections, but what they call collective action or contentious politics. It's not, when you talk about politics, it's not just about after voting. That is just one aspect of it. You still, after voting, you still have various ways you can use. You don't need to wait till the next 4 years. You can go on demonstration, you can protest, you can call your MP to come and answer questions. You can even actually mount a civic defiance of certain things. And that is what in Latin America, you see that in most places, this is what led to the transition from liberal democracy to more social democratic democracy, because people are on the streets, they are protesting, they are very, they ask for their rights, and is their right to do that. So it is only when that aspect of politics, which is what I call politics from below, it is that one that can actually teach the leaders a lesson, that you are not just waiting till 4 years time, then we'll come and vote again. We actually can hold you accountable whilst you are in power.